Okay, so let's move on to a segment of football which, certainly from where I'm from a UK perspective, has taken huge strides of late. And where I work at Sky Sports, a couple of years ago, we signed a groundbreaking deal to show live games from the Women's Super League, which is the top division of elite women's football in England. And we did it along with the BBC and the FA, the Football Association. And of course, then we had the Women's Euros held in England and won by the English team, the Lionesses, in extra time against Germany in front of almost 90,000 people at Wembley. And then moving on to the continent of Europe itself, would you believe there were even more people than that at the Camp Nou, as Barça Femení, the women's team of FC Barcelona, played Real Madrid in the quarterfinals of the Champions League. And then for good measure, when they took on Wolfsburg, they had even more people, well in excess of 90,000 people inside one of the cathedrals of football, the Camp Nou. DAZN had the rights to the tournament, and they showed it free to air on YouTube. And these are important steps to raise awareness and improve perceptions. Not that it's been easy, because there have been plenty of obstacles along the way. So here's a question. How do we construct a similar narrative in African football? How do we take the learnings from what's happened in Europe, dispel the myths, shrug off the doubters, and instead fulfill the dreams of many young girls growing up who simply want to play the game to the best of their ability and at the highest level? This is a really, really fascinating topic. And to discuss it for us, please welcome your speakers. President and founder at Petrichor Football Association, Paul Dreisbach, the chairman from Mamelodi Sundowns FC, Tlhopie Motsepe, head of women's football of Burnley FC and executive director of Goals for Girls, Lola Ogunbote, and founder FC Badgers, Romani Pinnock, and also your moderator, CEO from Africa Sports Foundation Centre, Dr. Mariam Mpaata. Please welcome them on stage. Come and take a seat. I mentioned this from a UK perspective, from a European perspective, has been an area of real growth, and also, I like this word, fulfillment, but we're not done yet. Certainly not in Europe, and I dare say also certainly not here in Africa, and it would be lovely to see women's football have the stage that it deserves in all facets of the game. Mariam, over to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very excited to be here today. With a great team. Today they called me their captain, so I'm going to lead this team to victory. I would like to first introduce Paul. Paul is the founder of Petrichor Football Association in Cameroon and has many years of experience in international development. And welcome, Paul. I'm looking forward to having a wonderful afternoon. I'll introduce Lola. Lola is a Nigerian-born Brit who enjoys the best of both cultures. She is a qualified lawyer who transitioned into football coaching in 2006 and has led very many professional male and female teams across Asia, Africa, and Australia. Romani, welcome. She is a management consultant working in the educational and non-profit and local government fields. She is the founder of Badgers Football Academy, the only football-led club in Cape Town that is solely focused on women. Well done, ma'am. Tlhopie, did I get that right?
Tlhopie?
Tlhopie?
Brilliant.
I need to stay for about 2 weeks to learn South African names. Yeah? Tlhopie is the chairman of Mamelodi Sundowns Football Club, which is the home to South Africa's most successful men's and women's football teams, both currently standing as the defending champions in their respective leagues. Well done.
Thank you.
To introduce myself, Mariam Mpaata. I'm a sports activist who came from being a housewife for 7 years to now a sports activist who has gone on to graduate with a master's in sports management, and an honorary doctorate in sports management. I'm also an author of a book called Boots Don't Lie, and I'm attempting to build Africa's first sports university. And considering that we are talking about stereotypes, I'm a woman who has been stereotyped very many times, and even as I speak and say, I want to build a sports university, some people will be like, really? But yes, today we are here to demystify this, prejudiced scenario that women can't do things that men can do, or that they shouldn't attempt to do things because we've been labeled maybe weak, or, we shouldn't be aggressive. So in sports, I'm sure my team will tell you that they've experienced and seen most of these things happen. So today we want to talk about why, what, when, and what can we do to change the narrative. Thank you very much. I hope you have a good afternoon. So, my team, are you ready? Mm-hmm. Can you just wave to the crowd and say hello? Can you say hello?
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, good. So the first question I want to pose to Roman is, what do you think are some of the gender stereotypes in sports?
I think we see the classic ones like you've just mentioned.
Yes.
That women can't be hard or decisive. But I think what we see a lot at a club level is that women shouldn't be coaching or reffing. We've had our top refs ref games where parents are shouting, that is, she's a woman. That's why she made that decision and it's the wrong decision. And yes, everyone will always say the ref made the wrong decision, but to gender it is unnecessary.
Yes.
I think we see a lot of that at a club level, unnecessarily.
Yes. I've seen, the other day I hosted a corporate tournament, and I said, I want to have an all-referee women team. And one of the gentlemen said, the women got married during COVID. And I thought to myself, does getting married mean you can't do your job? So indeed, you're right. Sometimes in reffing and coaching, we find that women are not, somehow they shouldn't be there. But actually, when you give them a good sport, then they do a good job at it, And maybe Laura can tell us, have you experienced such scenarios as a sports personality? Have you experienced being stereotyped?
Yeah, I think most women in the game can reel off experiences, sadly, of differential treatment based on their gender. I think for me, my experiences of that happened during my time coaching in China, and just perceptions on what and who a woman should be and where their place should be was kind of startling for me as a coach. And when you're coaching, at the time I was coaching adolescent boys, and that's a nuance in and of itself, whoever's coaching that group. But I remember walking onto the field and just feeling that kind of amazement that I was there. It was almost like, well, who are you? Are you here to give us our kit? Like, what is your role here? And I remember just trying to be I can be quite a fiery personality, and I knew that wasn't going to resolve the situation, and so we just played football. And I think that's one of the beauties of the sport in and of itself, is that it can remove those barriers. And once they had understood that I could play the game equally, if not better than they could, they were open to my coaching style. And should that always be the case? Probably not. It should just be that I'm here to coach, and that should be it. But I think there's an opportunity for a lot of people in those positions to use it as a teaching moment rather than take it so personal, and for it to become a negative experience. We obviously all want to be in a world where it's not even a discussion. We don't even have to talk about it in an ideal world, but we're not quite there yet. And so in this time period, I think it's important to reflect, what can you do to turn that situation from a negative into a positive.
Brilliant, Laura. I mean, it's always, for women, when you go in a space and you find yourself probably in a space where you're uniquely alone, probably as a woman, or as something that you're better off than others in that sport. Sometimes it's kind of like, it's so real. You're thinking, is it real or not? But I think that at that moment, as a woman, you have an opportunity to be confident enough to, demystify again this being stereotyped, and I must say congratulations on leading, some of the teams that you talk about in your profile. Well done. I would like to go to the gentleman. I know I would not say they are culprits, but I'm sure. I would like to know, really, have you ever at one point, found yourself in a situation where maybe you might have said something and later nobody's going to judge you, because even men, sometimes they don't know they are doing it. They don't know that, for example, if you were to find a woman in such a sport and all you can talk about is her beauty, all you can talk about is her body, that you actually, offending that person and stereotyping the woman. How about getting to know her better in terms of what knowledge does she have? What experience does she have? Have you found yourself in such a situation, or have you found yourself with other men who do such things, and how have you done, what have you done to solve it, or how have you addressed it? Maybe I can address the chairman himself.
No, it's an important question to raise, Doctor. Whether it was a positive or not, when we had COVID and we were all forced to move to digital and we all had to work from home in different Zoom environments, you pick up these small tendencies of maybe the men in the forum who show some signs of, like you say, not even knowing that they maybe are being chauvinistic, if we can use that term, where they talk over a woman in the Zoom discussions. A woman is having an idea, sharing a point, and somebody else will interject quickly and say, no, but we should, maybe do something like this. Those happen quite frequently on the calls, on the Zooms, and in my position, it was always an opportunity to correct those men in the forum who weren't giving the lady an opportunity to speak. Yes. And it's important for everybody in the forum when something like that happens, because first of all, you recorrect the direction of the conversation. Yeah. You show the men in the forum that the ideas and the voices of the women in our team are important. But also, you build confidence within the women in our team as well to say, this idea is important and this idea should be heard. So it's those subtle ways that you pick it up. It's no longer, and we're very lucky at Mamelodi Sundowns, it's not as blatant as you may expect or you may think, but it's still there in those forms, and it's about picking it out and changing it immediately when you see the bad behaviors, and obviously, celebrating and enforcing good ideas from women in the group, and enforcing good behaviors from some of the men who also want to show positive, behavior towards the women.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I think you're very right. Speaking out is one of the ways that we can truly address this issue. Yeah. I don't know, what are your thoughts, Paul, on this?
While you were talking, I thought about a story from a recent league we did in Cameroon, and the reffing team was a woman at the center ref and 2 linesmen for the lines. And before the game, they all stood behind the banner to take pictures, but the photographer told the woman to go on the outside, on the very edge, and put the 2 men in the middle as a prominent space, I guess. I wasn't really sure. And they were taking these pictures, and I was like, wait, why? No, she's the center ref, put her in the middle. She's the one in control of this game. And the guy was just like, what? It just didn't even cross his mind because it's so ingrained. Oh, the man must be in charge. Like, he's the one. And they're like, no. The woman's the center ref. She's in control of this game. She should be in the middle. So it's as simple. I just thought about the story with things that happen just subconsciously with some of the communities and vendors we work with that come in as a part of what we do. Because Petrichor, we're very conscious of, how you address these things and bring in equality to the table. So the people we work with, we also try to help integrate that mindset.
Wonderful. What do you think, Paul, back to you again, what do you think stereotyping women results into, especially when it comes to opportunities and all that?
Yeah, specifically to sport, I think it's difficult because the stereotypes, at least that we encounter in Cameroon, often keep the girls at home or late to practice or training, or even if they can come to training, because multiple siblings come home from school. and the boy can go directly to training, but the girl has to do chores or whatever. And if they let her go, they'll go later. But we've really helped work with the mindset of families to say, like, the values you can learn in sports should be equal, and really showing the value as we've been doing this for a while, because at least where we work, you have to show it for them to believe it. And so we said, look, you can learn these characteristics through sport and these values of leadership and confidence. And they're like, oh yeah, sounds great. But nothing changed. So over the few years, we've gradually shown, as these girls are growing up and becoming leaders and confident and just great future leaders in the sport and in Cameroon, that families are now saying, like, okay, yeah, you can school, practice. You know, they see the value of it. But it's taking a long time. It's still not easy, but it takes a while to kind of change that.
Brilliant. And I think that, I believe that, beginning to tackle this situation, we must involve both male and female.
Yeah.
It's not just a solution for women to keep speaking up. It's also the other way that men really need to, put their foot down, especially towards those that are really, being biased about women. And sometimes, like the chairman said, sometimes it's sad when it's even from the top leadership, and it again denies women a lot of opportunities, because if you're in a boardroom and you're making decisions about even women football, and first of all, the women are not even part of that decision making, and then already you're making decisions for them. Already men don't understand our bodies, they don't understand our capabilities. It's so important to have a table that is already showing that women are capable of making that decisions. I don't know, Chairman, how is your organization or your club dealing with this kind of situation?
No, Doctor, I think what you're saying is such an important point. It's difficult even to say it sometimes,
Yes.
but a big reason why we're not seeing women in these leadership roles or having their voices heard is exactly like you said. It's because a lot of the power still sits with the men.
Yes.
And, so men are a big part of the problem in terms of not having the women's voice heard on certain matters in the boardroom and in terms of even promoting the game. But I also think, with that being said, men can be part of the solution. I had a chat. I beg your pardon?
Must be part of the solution.
Men must be part of the solution.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes,
Thank you,
they
Romani.
must, yeah.
You have examples like in FIFA, the most powerful man in football, Gianni Infantino, his general secretary of FIFA is an African woman, Miss Fatima Sumara. Just next to me now, Lola was telling me about her chairman at Burnley, but she was saying he's a very progressive, and he listens to what his head of women's football is saying. So here's a living example right next to me of good examples of what we should be doing.
Yeah.
And you see more of it and more of it being done in different organizations.
Yeah.
At Mamelodi Sundowns, I'm very happy to say that we've taken a more aggressive role in getting women involved in different and important departments of our football club.
Yeah.
Decision makers, our deputy chairperson is a woman, the chairperson of our whole supporter mobilization unit, so the chairperson of all the supporters of Mamelodi Sundowns across the country is a woman. We recently, for 6 months, we had an internship program where we were trying to bring in young people to the football club.
Yeah.
And 5 people were given an opportunity to work at our football club. 4 of them are women.
Yeah.
The heads of our marketing, production, social media are all women. And they're doing an amazing job for our football club in helping us speak to a different audience and also helping us change the trajectory of our football club and making them more responsible and the right decisions for our women's team and for the promotion of the game.
Thank you, Chairman. I think Romani said it very well. Men must be part of this transition, because we cannot leave each other behind. And it's also probably a good pointer to remind ourselves that men and women are not competitors. We complement each other, So when we look at it that way, then we understand that women have a lot of strength that probably men don't have, and vice versa. And so if we are able to have a scenario where it's no longer, oh, let's give women 30% of, it should be 50%, so that we are all growing together and making this world better. And maybe to talk about the South African bid for the Women World Cup, and I'll direct this to Laura and Romani. You know, FIFA World Cup, when it came to South Africa, of course, it was a big boost for the continent and the country as well. And there was a lot of boom in terms of economic benefits. There's a report that puts it at 0.4% increment. And of course, the world got to know so much that we didn't know about Africa and South Africa. And I believe that even having this summit here today is because of that result of the World Cup. I'm just wondering what lessons should South Africa carry forward as they prepare to bid for the South Africa, for World Cup for women here in 2027. Do you think that there are lessons that they should pick from? Because it's not always all rosy. I know that it's a fact that so many host countries remain with almost ghost stadiums and infrastructure. What lessons should South Africa carry forward in preparation to, maybe Romani, you can take that on first.
I think World Cups are great ways for countries to say, hello world, we're doing fine. Mm-hmm. Qatar. We're not doing fine. Mm-hmm. Our economy is struggling. People at an individual level are struggling. Mm-hmm. We have some of the highest gender-based violence in the world. Yeah. Women's football is not supported enough. Mm-hmm. I think if we think about hosting a World Cup, maybe we shouldn't say, hello world, we're doing fine. Maybe we could integrate a bid into strategies that address that head on, that the strategies that look at women's football long term, at getting the funding into the right places, anti-corruption strategies, and then facing gender-based violence head on. Our biggest issue is access. How do we get our girls safely to football, which a lot of other places struggle with as well, other countries. If we're going to host a World Cup and we're going to inspire millions of girls to play football, we have to look at how they can get to football, and if they can get quality coaching, and if people are trained in safeguarding so that our girls are safe. I would say, let's face the dirty when we talk about a World Cup.
That's true.
And not put Band-Aids over everything and say that we're okay.
That makes a lot of sense, because it would be unfortunate actually to host a World Cup and later there are people still struggling terribly. Women are being abused, like you're saying. If South Africa can find a way of dealing with some of these issues, and so that we don't host people and our dirty linen is still right there in front of us. So that's definitely something I'm sure the authorities who are responsible have heard and had it quite clear and loud. Lola, I don't know, what are your opinions on the question?
Yeah, just as you were speaking and as Romani was speaking, I think for me, the word is legacy. Yes. So you bring a World Cup, it happens, and then what next? What is the legacy of that World Cup? Are we providing, as a result of hosting, more opportunities for girls to play, more access? Are we investing in our grassroots clubs that will inevitably feed pro clubs in the end? Are we investing in referees, in coaches, in women who can govern the game? We know that they're capable, but we know that the issue really, at least to my mind, is the lack of opportunities. And so if a World Cup comes, which I hope it does, is South Africa in a position to host it? We know they can. They did it in 2010. But what's the legacy? What do we do afterwards? And what is the plan? And I think that's probably the most specific thing that needs to be addressed. We're going to have this World Cup. We're going to bring the world to us. But then what do we leave our people behind when everyone else has gone home?
That's very deep, because if it's Women's World Cup, and we are talking about stereotypes, we're talking about gender-based violence, we want women to get more pay. Can we see a South Africa that's going to have women footballers paid more, an equal pay to the men? Can we see a South Africa that is going to lead in terms of, opportunities for women, in the sports world? Is it possible to see that? Do you think, Chairman, such things can happen?
Yes, I do think so. I mean, right now, the South African Men's Premier Soccer League is one of the most developed football leagues in the continent. It generates, it probably has some of the highest broadcasting numbers and revenues in the continent in terms of viewership. So there's definitely a model that can be followed. But on the other side of that, the money comes from sponsors, from people who are willing to get involved in the game. Romani and what Paul are doing in terms of developing the football at a lower level and making sure that the talent is growing is an important part in making sure that when they come to the big clubs or the pro clubs, the quality of football is there. So the entertainment value is there. And I'm sure that they're going to take care of that because, already we're seeing women's AFCON, Women's Champions League, the standard of football and the quality is exceptional and it's very good.
Yeah.
But again, I say equality and getting the ladies more money is possible if we make sure that the right sponsors and the right partners are there in terms of bringing the broadcasting revenues to the table. It's definitely possible, and I think in Africa, sorry, I have a butterfly flying by me. Maybe that's another sign they're saying that's possible. But in Africa, I think the talent and the passion for football, and especially women's football, it's there in ample supply. So we definitely need to just make sure that the right people and the right partners see the value in that. And I suppose it goes back to the basis of this whole talk, the stereotypes.
Yes.
We have to break the stereotypes around women's football.
Yes.
And there are even stereotypes on the business side of women's football. People still don't think that women's football is entertaining.
Yes.
That's a stereotype that they think,
Yes,
But you look at the numbers and they say otherwise.
Yes. And you want to say something, Romani?
Yeah, I just thought to add the thing about you can look at women's football in a quite financial way and just forecast it, and you can see where men's football has gotten to in terms of revenues and profitability on the sponsoring side. And if you look at women's football here and on the continent as in this sort of startup mode, like, okay, what is this going to look like in 10, 20 years? It's going the same way. So it's obviously a good idea for investors to get in early. But I also think, to mine and Paul's stress, is that often the lower level football, the grassroots work, is not sexy to sponsor because it's not going to be on television and it might not produce maybe 1% stars or something like that. So as a country, as FAs, I think we really need to look at women's football holistically and say, yes, at the top we can make money. Let's make sure something's getting to the bottom so that the whole ecosystem can work effectively.
That is, I'm sorry, Doctor, I hope you
Yes,
don't mind. That is
no.
such a powerful point.
Yes.
I don't know, can we even applaud what Romani just said, please? I feel like that is just, yeah. No,
Brilliant.
Absolutely, I agree entirely with what she's saying, And maybe it even goes back to what Lola and you were speaking about in Romani around the World Cup legacy.
Yes.
Right? If we're going to have a Women's World Cup in Africa, we need to, as Romani and Lola were saying, we need to make sure that we have a clear plan as to what we want to achieve after the fact.
Yes.
And I don't know if 2010 is the best example to look at in terms of what South Africa can do in the Women's World Cup in the future. Perhaps we should look at what happened in the Women's Euros in England, or what happened in 2019 in France, because both of those countries had programs that were focused on women and the youth.
Yes.
And they benefited immensely, and they grew the game after the competition was long gone.
Yes.
So maybe that's where we should also be looking for lessons in terms of how we can really build on what we do here.
Yes, that's true, because we cannot. 2010 has been a whole 10 years past, you know, and it's definitely important to look at other, you know, big events that have happened so that we can also pick on some pointers and definitely also still go back to the old books and see, yes, where did we go wrong as South Africa in 2010, or where did we go right, and build on to what we have and what we are seeing out there to leave a legacy again, once again, like Lola said. Let me go to Paul and ask, you talked, when we were at the backstage, you talked so much about, you know, strategy. What is the strategy to be able, for us to be able to overcome the stereotype deep down into the grassroots? Because we, at the top, we have so many success stories, you know, and we are seeing women in the boardroom, we are seeing, you know, there's a time I was invited for a sports conference in East Africa. I don't want to mention names, but I went to this conference, and at forum like this, there were only men seated at the stage. And for a minute, I thought I'd come for a men's conference, you know. And when I was given, I you know, pushed and pushed until I was given an opportunity to speak. And I made sure I alerted the men, look here, if you're really talking about sports and talking about how you lack sponsorship, in this era, there's nowhere you're going to knock doors and not have women on board and expect to be supported, you know. But as much as we see some progress now, we can be here, and there are women, more women even than men, talking about football. Down in the grassroots, there's still a problem. And Paul talked about strategy. What strategy were you talking about, Paul?
Yeah, with Petrichor, I mean, this is a very complex problem on one side, but it's also very simple. We need better programs, a better approach to this problem. And like she said, we must be a part of that. I think this space needs men that understand the problem and are a part of it in a responsible way, that elevate women in leadership in multiple different layers. As far as Petrichor and our strategy, we're focusing on that entry-level age, so like 8 years old. You know, when they enter Petrichor programs, they see women in leadership, they see role models. We bring in different female athlete ambassadors and people from the national team or Spain or whatever, and that's who they look to. You know, so we try to provide exposure to what they can be someday, because it's not me, hopefully. You know, so we're trying to bring in people that they can aspire to be like someday. So we try to do that from 8 years old onwards, and then as those girls grow up, the ones coming under see their bigger sisters, as a role model, and we just kind of keep that cycle going. And hopefully the girls that graduate through the entire program become leaders of Petrichor someday. So we can just kind of take ourselves out of it and step back. So my strategy each time I'm in Cameroon is to take one more step back and allow more space for the women that we have and that we're working with. So I think each scenario might be a little different, but as far as Petrichor, that's kind of how we approach it, just to pull ourselves out one step at a time. We've been doing it for about 5 years, and we've got some great young leaders coming up we're excited about, so that's what we do.
Yes. So I hear you very well talking about stepping back and giving women or young girls the opportunity to lead and, even to just make mistakes. Because one of the things that men worry about, or the top leaders worry about, is that put a woman in the spotlight, she's going to make mistakes. But I think mistakes are okay, because then we learn from mistakes at some point, And also I think we had a discussion with either Romania talking about education, because when we don't give women opportunity to, to learn and to get knowledge, then it also becomes an issue for us to give them the space to lead and take on things. So do you have a program where in your organization where you training women and giving them the opportunities to become leaders?
I'm just going to take one step back.
Yes.
To the before I talk about education, just about diversity, the education of diversity, which I think is a broader discussion than gender. And in this country in particular, we are really good at othering, whether it's gender or race or class. if, are you foreign or not in South Africa? There's, there'll be the stereotypes with that. Are you part of the LGBT community? And it's deep set in South Africa, and it's left over from apartheid, but it's perpetuated even by global politics, local politics. So, when we talk about stereotypes and gender, I think we must also look broader at this fear of differences. So yes, anyone's going to make a mistake in a role. Is that really the problem, or is it that you're nervous to hire someone that you wouldn't know how to make a conversation with them because they're so different to you? True. And if we can get through that through education, I think we can change countries. Because and the great thing about football is that we're all the same when we're out there, except for you, our captain, who's our boss. But it levels us, and we can use that as the education step to say it doesn't matter who you are. When you're out here, we're all the same, and we've got the same goal. So I think team sport's such a powerful tool in that regard. So whatever education system you plug in, you can just use the sport.
Perfect.
Can I just add to that? Just as Romani was speaking, I think also that education starts at home, particularly. I can speak from my experience. My parents are African Nigerian and had no interest in me playing football. And so for us, the education has to be from the caregivers. You can give a girl all the education she wants, but if she's in an environment where she's unable to actually think those things and believe those things and possess those ideas, it becomes a very hostile environment because you're battling against your caregivers, your providers. And I think for us, through the NGO that I run with Goals for Girls, we take time to bring in parents. Through the COVID pandemic, we did programming online like so many different organizations had to do. And we invited our girls to bring their mums along. And we programmed with them together. And I'm not sure that made any long-lasting change, but what it did is it provided a caregiver, a primary caregiver, an insight into what we're teaching her girl. And if we can get her to buy into it, it's more likely that she'll help her daughter buy into it. And thereby, then we can work on the family as a unit, if that is the situation at home. And so I think that education does begin at home. It begins with those individuals that are caring for the child. And then we also, to Romani's point, then have to empower that child to act on what knowledge or education that we're providing as well.
Perfect. I think education is a key element in most of us challenges in sports as Africa. And I believe that it's also high time that we invested in our education, sports education systems, because first of all, our education in terms of sports is quite costly, especially when it comes to developed countries. So if you can be able to provide these facilities or trainings or courses in a much more affordable and accessible way, then some of these problems I think we can be overcome with time, And just to find out if, in the next 4 minutes, to find out if my team has passed with flying colors. Yeah? Are you ready for the test? And remember, they are also going to be marking you, so... Yeah, I guess you didn't expect that. This is what captains do. So, Paul, how would you describe a woman?
Be careful, Paul.
Take time.
Yes,
breathe.
How would you describe a woman? Let's say you want to describe Laura. To introduce her to the audience.
Okay,
Yes.
I will introduce Lola. Yeah. Good luck. Lola is first of all a friend, but she's also a role model for me because I met her not too long ago, but I've seen her incredible potential to change the world as a leader. Especially, we were just in Cameroon together a few weeks ago, so seeing her actually instruct other instructors to continue a cycle of positive change was something that I don't get to see much. That's a snapshot in life that's powerful. So I take advantage of those moments, and Lola does that. So she's someone I look up to and have learned a lot from in a short amount of time.
I think you passed.
have passed with that 80%.
80, come on, okay.
We want to hear you describe Laura with her proper attributes, other than friend, lovely, kind. I've cheated.
But
given
those
you
things
the
are true,
answers,
though.
Yeah?
I'll take that.
They are true, yeah.
Let's see Romani describe her.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Lola is dry and delivers with a sense of humor that you didn't expect. And on a career side, I think is quite formidable and taking up necessary space where she's meant to be.
Thank you. Wow, Mariam, I didn't expect this.
Good. I'm curious to know what dry means. What did you say, dry?
Dry, like a dry sense of humor. Like you don't know it's going to hit you, then it hits you.
Good.
Should you laugh or
Cry?
All right, you get our 85%.
Wow.
Now, Laura, can you describe the chairman in just 1 minute, because we are running out? If you were to meet him, I mean, after this, you've heard him talk and all that, what would you say?
I think he's passionate about the work that he does. I think he's an advocate. And I think in the space that we're working in, we need male allies. And I would say that about, female allies, rather. I'd say that about the both of them. That the work they're doing is championing women. And as a woman, I can't think of anything that's much more productive to do with your time. I think the world could do with many more male allies, like Paul and Tlhopie. So it's one of those ones that I hope people in the audience today can go away and think about what they can do in their spheres of influences, whether that's at home, whether that's at work, whether that's in your social structures, to raise the conversation and raise the profile in the way that these two are doing.
Good. I also give you 80%. Clap.
There we go.
Now, Chairman, you have the opportunity to describe me in just 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
No pressure.
The time is clicking.
No, I think we can all see that Dr. Mariam is a wonderful force of nature in football. I think you have multi-talented abilities to, get the attention of people and direct it in the right way for the right cause. Hearing about your dreams, or hearing about her dreams and ambitions to be the first woman to have a sports institute on the continent is the type of ambition and drive that we need to see, and we need to see in more women in leadership positions across the continent. So
Ooh, I
she's
give him a
fierce.
100%. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for giving us your attention. I think we've done justice to this afternoon. And we hope that you can be ambassadors of anti-stereotypes. Women are amazing. They are good at their work. They need opportunities, and they can do amazing and fantastic work. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Super. Absolutely. Look, women are amazing. Brilliant. But I think also what I'd like to say, just in just a final comment before I send you guys off stage, is we have two brilliant women here who represent the space very well, but it's really important to have allies, right?
Yes.
We do this together.
Yes.
And being a feminist doesn't mean that you care for women and you want them to be way superior to men. You want equality. That's what
Yes.
women want. And I think that, we have to all help in this. And I think that, the notion of allyship for me is really important in any of these battles that we face, whether it's to do with gender equality, whether it's to do with sexual orientation, the challenges we're seeing there as well. It was just such a fascinating conversation. I've been making copious notes backstage. I don't know why I did a cat impression there. But thank you once again. As you said, you've been managing this conversation absolutely brilliantly as well, Mariam. So thank you very much indeed. Give it up once again for our panel, please, everyone. Off you go. I want to just reflect a little further. We're going to change the stage once again, but I think that, it's great that we had Paul and Tlhopie's views there because, we do need everyone to get involved in this. And, as I mentioned, this notion of allyship, the space needs men that understand the problem, that are responsible, that elevate women in leadership. That's what Paul said. And Tlhopie's saying, a big reason why we're not seeing women in these leadership roles, because a lot of the power still sits with the men. We have to change the profile. We have to change the optics of it. It's great that we had, at the start of today, 2 women in leadership roles setting the stage for this conference. We had Mariam Mell'Osiime and we had the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal who is female. So we should absolutely keep that very much front and center. I profoundly believe this myself. And Lola and Romani also with just some wonderful insights. If we are going to have a World Cup here, which is obviously the desire in 2027 with South Africa confirming and formally offering a bid, are we definitely delivering what we set out to deliver beyond staging a tournament? Opportunities for girls to play, access, investing in our grassroots clubs, in women who are not just players or coaches or officials, but also women who can govern the game. We need to make sure that all of these bases are more than covered. And Romani saying, it's okay to not be okay, to say, hello world, we're okay, but if that's not the case, actually you've got to kind of like make a beeline for it and say, no, we've got some issues to deal with here to try and inspire millions of girls to play football. We can't just put Band-Aids on our problems. That's really important. You've got to acknowledge the problem for what it is and really try and solve it rather than kind of half deal with it, because that's ultimately not dealing with it. And this notion of othering, I think that's important because, sometimes we're too keen to point out each other's differences. And I think one of the great things about football is you celebrate the differences. And as she said, the great thing about football is it's a great leveler. We're all the same. We've all got the same goal. And, we have to try and find ways to really bring ourselves together. And Lola, on especially with the Goals for Girls example, education starts at home, has to come from the caregivers. We have to empower that child to act on knowledge and the education she was raised with. And if she's in an environment where she's taught those things and feel those things, then she will eventually believe those things. I think we all have a responsibility here, whether we are people who work professionally within the football industry, whether we are parents or caregivers, to try and put those people in the best possible place to maximize the opportunities that stand in front of them.